Chapter 51 It's a Matter of Course. You are listening at novelfull.audio. With a sound, Baron looked into the slightly blurred eyes of the beauty in his arms, lowered his head and kissed her lips. As early as that night in London, both Baron and Bonnie had already tacitly understood what would happen after arriving at Chatsworth Manor, so on this night, what happened next seemed to happen naturally. "Baron, let's go back." Like tasting the most delicious snack, Baron reluctantly ended the kiss. When Bonnie felt like she was suffocating, she finally got a breath, and her chest rose and fell violently. Even though the two of them were already in the shadow of the garden landscape, she was still full of shame and grabbed Baron's increasingly restless hand. So after Bonnie and Baron arranged their clothes, they walked out of the garden. Fortunately, she didn't meet anyone else along the way, which also made Bonnie relieved, except for Baron calling Ramos so that he wouldn't have to call him too early tomorrow morning. In Baron's room, hearing the man's instructions to the valet, Bonnie felt extremely shy. "Your Royal Highness, Mr. Amber Sheehan, Senior Manager of PwC, has arrived at the manor. I have to say that these people are really hard-working. Although today is Sunday, after PwC received Baron's acquisition consultation order, their people compiled the relevant information as soon as possible and formulated a preliminary plan. He came to Chatsworth Manor to meet with Baron to discuss the matter. When Wanting first reported this matter to Baron, it was still in the morning. At that time, Baron was still in the gentle land. Since coming to this time and space, Baron still maintained the habits of his previous life. Unlike many nobles, it can be said that he was very diligent. But today is a bit special, not only because of the weekend, but also because last night, he and Bonnie learned some in-depth knowledge. As a new wife, and Baron's ability to learn is particularly strong, Bonnie has been until almost it was 10 o'clock before she could get out of bed. During this period, Baron naturally coaxed her gently. Just when Baron and Bonnie had had breakfast, Wanting informed him that someone from PwC had arrived. In the living room on the first floor of the manor, Baron met the senior manager of PwC. Amber Sheehan looks to be in her early 30s, wearing a well-fitting suit and a confident expression. She looks like a professional elite, but it's no wonder that the position of senior manager is already the most senior position after partner in PwC. It usually takes at least 10 years from the time of joining, and Amber Sheehan can do it within 3 years. Reaching the position of senior manager at an early age can be said to be the result of extremely outstanding performance. After all, it was PwC, one of the big 4 firms. "Your Highness the Duke, it is an honor to meet you. I am Amber Sheehan, Senior Manager of Transaction Services at PwC." After meeting, the other party got straight to the point. "After learning about your needs, we collected all relevant information about the independent and its parent company I&M Group, and will make the optimal strategy for your acquisition as soon as possible, but before that, we need for more needs and ideas about this acquisition. Please learn more." "Okay, Mr. Sheehan, you can ask whatever you want to know. I hope you can let me complete this acquisition at the lowest price and in the fastest time and get the independent." After hearing Baron's words, Amber said confidently, "Please rest assured, Your Highness the Duke, every penny you pay us will definitely be worth it, so we will start now." Except for the visit of the senior manager of PwC, Baron's life at Chatsworth Manor was leisurely and sweet. Especially Bonnie, who had just had a close relationship with him, was in a state of passion, and I don't know if it was due to her physical condition, although she acted a little unbearable when she and Baron were learning knowledge together that night. But her recovery and adaptability are indeed commendable. After just 1 day, she was already worthy of a battle. Even in the process of learning knowledge, I still can't meet Baron's opponents or good talents, but at least I won't collapse at the first touch. Well, for a talent like her, Baron, who likes to be a teacher, is always willing to teach her. It has to be said that Bonnie, a beauty with an elf-like appearance and a succubus-like figure, really fascinated Baron. Originally, according to his plan, he was going to return to the DS Exchange in London when the Nasdaq stock market opened for trading on Monday, but because of her temptation, Baron postponed his return to London by 1 day. Of course, Bonnie is not much better. After getting a taste of it for the first time, she also wants to stay close to Baron. The first novel of Downton Abbey, which was originally expected to be completed in these 2 days, will be completed again without any suspense. Postponed by 2 days, Monday, July 8. Affected by the announcement of Airgate PCS on Saturday and the news that the SEC will investigate it, and a number of financial companies lowered their ratings on Airgate stock jumped directly lower after the Nasdaq stock market began trading. Open. In the end, Airgate stock price fell by more than 2/3 in just one day. It once fell below $8 during the session and finally closed at $8.72, calculated based on this closing price. The profit of DS Capital's short-selling Airgate stock account at this time has exceeded $50 million. This time's short-term short selling is so powerful, however, Barron knows that opportunities like this are extremely rare, and the circulation of stocks like this makes it impossible to operate on a large scale. This amount of funds is considered relatively low risk. During the trading hours of this day, Daisy asked Barron several times if he needed to start buying stocks to close his position, but Barron refused, because he knew that Airgate's plunge was just the beginning. In his memory of his previous life, this stock ranked first in the U.S. stock market's decline this year. In the later period, Airgate stock suffered from insufficient liquidity, changes in management and poor cash flow performance, and Standard & Poor's downgraded the company's debt rating. Throughout 2002, the company's stock price dropped from more than $40 to a low of $0.81, a full 98% drop. Of course, Barron will not really wait for Airgate to fall to the lowest point of 81 cents before closing his position. After all, it will take too long to wait, and now with his participation, it is difficult to say what the trend of Airgate stock will be in the future. It may fall even lower, or it may not fall that low. His plan is to wait for a while, at least after the subsequent negative news continues to be exposed, and then start to close the position after another drop. The data during the new book period is related to subsequent recommendations, so follow-up reading is very important. I beg you not to keep it all the time. If you feel that it is okay, read it every day to help increase follow-up reading. Thank you very much. Chapter 52: A Big Departure. You are listening at novelfull.audio. I grew up in Chatsworth Manor, and I have seen many manors that have become dilapidated and even abandoned. Even Chatsworth Manor has experienced the dilemma of lack of funds for maintenance. Therefore, as a nobles, I have an even greater responsibility to make contributions to the best of my ability for those treasures of England, those beautiful manors that are deeply rooted in our collective memory. To protect them is to protect our homeland. I also call on everyone to pay more attention to them, and put love on these legacies of the fall of England. After Barron's speech, there was warm applause. At this time, he was smiling and maintaining an elegant appearance, facing the bombardment of flashlights from all directions. Of course, the reason for this effect is that in addition to his generous donation of £500,000 to the Trust Fund for the Protection of British Monuments and monuments initiated by the royal family, he has indeed become a hot figure in media reports recently. Baron, thank you very much for your contribution to protecting Britain's treasures. Your Highness, compared to the efforts you have made for this, my contribution is not worth mentioning. Hello, Your Highness, it is a pleasure to see you again. Such charity fundraising, and it is a fund initiated by the royal family, naturally involves the royal family's model worker the Prince of Wales. According to statistics, at most, His Royal Highness the Crown Prince can appear in more than 500 various events a year. Of course, because it is the summer vacation of college, the Crown Prince also brought Prince William with him today to increase his exposure. In fact, whether the Prince of Wales, the Crown Prince in the shadow of the extremely long-term standby Queen, or most of the British aristocrats at this time, they most often appear in public in charity fundraising activities. After all, the political rights of the British aristocrats have been declining day by day. What best reflects their sense of responsibility to Britain is their charitable appeals and contributions. Baron, do you really want to buy the Independent? That it seems that the Prince of Wales is also extremely concerned about this matter that has been widely reported recently. Yes, after PwC approached Ion Group, the owner of the Independent, on behalf of Baron and proposed the acquisition of the newspaper, this matter began to appear in news reports and was hotly discussed by the public. The reason for this situation is that it is difficult to keep this kind of information secret, and the Ion Group, even if it intends to sell the Independent, does not mind using this to attract other bidders, and although the sales volume of the Independent has always been at the bottom among national newspapers, and its financial situation is not good, after all, its popularity is there, and the person who is planning to acquire this newspaper is the youngest duke in England at this time. The two are connected. Together, it is easy to arouse public interest. Yes, Your Highness, I have indeed made an offer for the Independent and am very interested in it. After hearing Baron's words, the Crown Prince said with concern. But I read reports that this newspaper is still suffering from huge debts, and its current operating conditions are not ideal. In fact, none of this is important to me. Your Highness, don't you think that the British media has increasingly lost its diverse voices? Especially after certain capital has bought too many of our media. The Times, News of the World plus The Sun. I don't want anyone to mention Britain in the future and say that every major decision we need to consider the opinions of three people, the Queen, the Prime Minister and the Murdoch's words. When he said these words, the Crown Prince's face immediately became cautious. He nodded and said to Baron. You are right, our Duke, the voice of the media cannot be in the hands of a few people. On this point, I support you. If you need any help, you can come to me directly. Thank you, Your Highness, your words are enough. As for funds, I have recently made a fortune in securities investment, so I will not have any financial difficulties for the time being. Hearing Baron talk about this, Prince William, who was beside the Crown Prince, became a little curious. Mr. Baron, is the securities investment you are talking about a capital game like Wall Street's? Can you tell me more specifically? Of course that's no problem, but it's a long story. I'm afraid it's not the right day today. When do you have time? I can invite you to my investment company to take a look at our operations. That's great. I happened to be on vacation recently, so there wasn't much going on. So Baron exchanged mobile phone numbers with William and agreed to invite him to visit DS Capital another day. As the future King of England, it is necessary for Baron to establish a good relationship with Prince William in advance. The reason why I just said that we are not talking about capital investment now is because Baron gave him a look when he saw the Crown Prince. Then, the Crown Prince took Baron alone and walked together to a place where it was convenient to talk. He patted Baron on the shoulder, showing the appearance of an elder, and said to Baron. I have been paying attention to the previous case of London Star, and have been in contact with Scotland Yard. Is there any progress in that case? Your Highness. This case is a bit complicated. The Crown Prince looked around casually, lowered his voice slightly, and said to Baron. I think you should know this information, but it should not be spread outside until it is finalized. I understand, Your Highness. Now this case is not only being investigated by Scotland Yard, MI6 is also involved. MI6, Baron was a little surprised. Speaking of British intelligence agencies, MI5 and MI6 were the two most famous ones. In short, MI5 mainly targeted domestic affairs and MI6 mainly targeted foreign countries. Now he heard that Wales the Prince said that MI6 was also involved in the case, which was naturally surprising. After all, it was just a fraud case. How could it attract an intelligence agency like MI6? If the London Star was just a simple fraud, then with the intelligence capabilities of our British and allies, it would be impossible for them to escape. However, during the investigation, we discovered that their financial flows were related to certain terrorist organizations. There is an intersection of funds. Judging from the intelligence currently available, including Scotland Yard, they all suspect that the group that planned this fraud may have some connections with Al-Qaeda. Is this Scotland Yard suspicion or MI6 suspicion? Seeing Baron's outrageous expression, the Crown Prince seemed a little embarrassed. MI6 believes that they have links with certain illegal organizations, including terrorist organizations. However, Scotland Yard believes that they are peripheral members of Al-Qaeda, or that they provide funds for them. Hearing what the Crown Prince said, Baron couldn't help but said. F***K, those idiots at Scotland Yard, even if they want to excuse themselves for their incompetence, they should at least think of some reliable reason to say that those people are related to Al-Qaeda. Your Highness, this is if it really leaks out, I'm afraid we, the British, will be embarrassed. I believe you said that those mobs can crash into buildings and blow up subways. You said that they sent people to London to engage in financial fraud. Who doesn't know that their financial backers are those oil nouveau riche? Calm down, Baron. I know this sounds really outrageous, so I am more inclined to the conclusion of MI6. After all, those people are not simple. Trust me, we will find them sooner or later. The data during the new book period is related to subsequent recommendations, so follow-up reading is very important. I beg you not to keep it all the time. If you feel that it is okay, read it every day to help increase follow-up reading. Thank you very much. Chapter 53 Cavendish Hotel. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The Crown Prince said that he would try his best to find those people, which Baron somewhat believed, because if the other party really had contact with any terrorist organization, whether it was the outrageous Al-Qaeda or the military intelligence group of Scotland Yard's trash currently, the British government will not easily let go of other organizations that the Sixth Office considers. You must know that Al-Qaeda alone is not the only one that caused the 9/11 incident in the United States and poses a threat to the United States. Since the United States and other countries launched the war on terror against Afghanistan, almost all participating countries, including Britain, have been threatened by attacks from Al-Qaeda, so the relevant departments in Britain have been very vigilant about this. Therefore, as long as the London Star Gang is really related to certain terrorist organizations, it will definitely become the focus of their investigation. Your Highness, I know that by now, the possibility of recovering the lost funds of the family is very small, but no matter who the other party is, those who offend the Devonshire family will have to pay the price. If Scotland Yard and MI6 if they can't find out the results, I will still continue and will not give up. Baron, on this point, I have the same idea as you, but I hope you have confidence in us and our allies. We have contacted our friends in the United States and will first start with the members of the previous gang on Wall Street. Investigate the matter. Just as the Prince of Wales was about to leave, he finally said to Baron. By the way, I've already asked about the renovation of King's Cross. St. Pancras Station is about to be completed soon, and the renovation plan for the entire King's Cross area will be put on the agenda. Again, Baron, what do you need? If you want help, just call me. After bidding farewell to the Crown Prince and the Prince, when Baron walked out of the hotel used for charity fundraising events, he encountered several reporters who tried to interview him. After briefly expressing his views on the matter of the Independent, Baron said in a friendly manner he declined more personal questions about him and got into the Rolls-Royce. In the meeting just now, the Prince of Wales showed more kindness than before. Baron was not naive to think that these were simply the royal family's love for the nobles. Everyone must first show their own kindness. Only with value can we gain the other party's friendship. Now Baron's value has begun to be recognized by the other party. Your Highness, your phone number. As soon as she sat in the car, Wang Wanting handed her the mobile phone. When he participated in previous charity fundraising events, his mobile phone was always given to his personal assistant. Looking at Aurora's name on the phone screen, Baron hesitated for a moment and finally answered the call. Dear Aurora, I couldn't contact you before, I was very worried. Before Baron could finish speaking, Aurora's voice came from the phone. Baron, you bastard. Shameless bastard. Aurora's voice was so loud that even in receiver mode, Baron couldn't help but take the phone away from his ear, but he could still hear her voice behind her. Dear, I'm afraid you have some misunderstanding about me. Really? Baron, are you going to explain to me what was reported in the newspaper about your new girlfriend, the TV host? Well, Baron glanced at the front seat of the car. His personal assistant was looking at his notebook with no expression on his face. I originally wanted to tell you, Aurora, but you didn't answer my calls or reply to my messages. I even suspected that you had blocked me. You reminded me, Baron, that I should indeed block you. No, dear Aurora, don't be impulsive. No one can predict things like feelings, right? We are still friends, best friends. *T. Do you think of me as a friend? You just want to sleep with me and you don't care what I think. Don't let me see you again. Go find that monster, asshole. My dear, I will talk to you another day. Before Baron finished speaking, he heard the other party hanging up the phone. When he called again, as expected, he heard the notification tone that the other party's phone had been turned off, after an unknown length of silence in the Rolls-Royce. Your Highness, we have arrived at the Cavendish Hotel. Wanting broke the quiet and slightly awkward atmosphere. What they came to this time was the Cavendish Hotel in London. This hotel was built in 1968 by the 11th Duke and Duchess of Devonshire. The hotel is located on Oxford Street in Soho, London. It is a 4-story building with a total of 33 rooms. The word Soho is familiar to everyone and is used by many cities to name entertainment areas. Soho is located in the city of Westminster, a sub-administrative district in the west of London. Earlier, Soho was originally London's red light district. Later, this kind of special business gradually declined. In addition, Soho is located close to Mayfair, London's financial district. Every day, many office workers choose to spend time in Soho's fashionable bars or cafes after get-off work, gradually making Soho it has become a recreational community where young people gather. Nowadays, many fashionable bars, small shops, and high-end hotels gather here, and only a few special places are still open. It can be said that this location is still very good for a hotel. It is precisely because the business conditions of the Cavendish Hotel are satisfactory that Baron's father previously intended to expand the scale of the hotel in London. Another reason is that this small building of the Cavendish Hotel was first built in the 1950s, and was later bought by the family to run the hotel. It has been nearly half a century now, and both construction and decoration have been already a bit old. Your Highness the Duke, the land of this hotel, including the attached parking lot, covers an area of about 2 hectares, and all belongs to the Devonshire family. At the hotel, Yulia and the hotel manager José Pineda welcomed Baron's arrival. Yulia introduced the situation of the hotel to Baron at the beginning of this year. There was originally a plan to renovate and update this place, but in the end, due to the financial situation, the plan was temporarily shelved. Baron also understood the hidden meaning of Yulia's words. At that time, his father was investing most of his funds in the London Star. I am afraid that the idea at that time was to carry out the renovation plan of the hotel after making a profit. And even opened another higher-end hotel in London. Unexpectedly, after visiting the Cavendish Hotel, Baron said to Yulia and the hotel manager beside him. It is true as you said, although it can be seen that the hotel has tried its best to maintain it, the facilities and decoration here are a bit old, and it is time to make changes. After his words fell, Baron could see the hope in the eyes of hotel manager José Pineda. With a smile on his face, Baron continued. But instead of tinkering, it is better to make more thorough changes. The area here can fully support a taller building. This will not only increase the hotel's business area, but also provide space for other operations. Your Highness the Duke, do you mean to demolish this place and rebuild a high-rise building on the same site? José, the hotel manager, asked tentatively. Yes. What about the hotel? The construction time can be as short as 1 year or as long as 2 years. You can rest assured, Mr. Pineda, this plan will not be carried out immediately. There will be a transition plan for the hotel. The data during the new book period is related to subsequent recommendations, so follow-up reading is very important. I beg you not to keep it all the time. If you feel that it is okay, read it every day to help increase follow-up reading. Thank you very much. Chapter 54 Hotel Brand. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Ms. Moore. Baron turned to Yulia and asked. I remember you saying to me that my father had already chosen a location for a new hotel in London, right? Yes, Your Highness the Duke, at that time your father was interested in a Victorian mansion in Chelsea. The mansion had nearly 40 rooms. Although it had been vacant for a long time, the other party asked for £17 million. At that time, your father was the hope is to turn it into a luxury hotel. This price does require determination. After hearing these words of Yulia, Baron somewhat understood why his father would take the risk to participate in such a scam as the London Star. For example, in the Chelsea area of London, such a 40-room mansion cost £17 million, which does not sound expensive, but you have to know that this is a Victorian-style mansion in London in 2002. In the next 20 years, the price will almost rise more than 10 times or even more than 20 times, therefore, the price of such a luxury home in 20 years may be as high as £350 million. Speaking of which, this phenomenon is seen in many areas of London, where many luxury properties are vacant, especially those that are older, because the maintenance costs of these luxury homes are high. Many owners of luxury homes leave them vacant waiting to be sold at a higher price out of economic interests. Baron thought of his cheap dad's idea. To buy such a mansion that had been idle for a long time for £17 million, and to carry out the overall renovation and decoration to use it as a luxury hotel, it would eventually cost at least £30 million. Moreover, the other party was facing other projects at the time, so no wonder he would be confused and invest so much money into the London Star with attractive returns. However, Baron admitted that his father's idea of buying a mansion and converting it into a luxury hotel was indeed very feasible. Because he knows that the entire UK, especially London, will continue to face a shortage of guest rooms in the future, the hotel industry as a whole, especially the market for luxury hotels, is still very large. In the future, various luxury hotel brands will also set up shop in London. If you rank luxury hotels in London, you can see that those in the front row are those hotels that are built in British classical buildings and have a rich sense of history. These hotels are also the most popular among wealthy people. This is not surprising. After all, those guests who can afford to stay in luxury hotels must want to experience the classic British aristocratic style when they come to London. As for those modern hotels, where can't they experience it? After all, luxury brands are all about telling stories, but what story can compare with the Devonshire family's hundreds of years of shining British aristocratic history? By staying in their hotel, you can directly enjoy the most orthodox British Duke-level aristocratic experience. I am afraid that these rich people simply cannot refuse this experience. Ms. Moore, please continue to negotiate the price with the owner of the house my father was interested in. Do you want to continue to buy that house and renovate it? Your Highness the Duke. Yulia asked with surprise after hearing Baron's instructions. Not only her, but also the hotel manager around her had a look of concern and surprise. After all, being able to manage such a top luxury hotel is probably the dream of all hotel practitioners. Yes, Ms. Moore, after all, that was my father's expectation. As the heir of the family, I have the obligation to complete his unfinished business. As you command, Your Highness the Duke. After receiving Baron's affirmative reply, Yulia immediately accepted the task. As for the funds needed. After this period of time, Yulia herself had to admit that the young Duke in front of her did have some kind of magic and could solve some things that she considered extremely difficult and troublesome. Perhaps the revitalization of the Devonshire family is not a dream. In Baron's view, purchasing and renovating such a mansion to open a luxury hotel does require a lot of funds, but these are not impossible to solve. The whole process can be fully operated through capital and will be truly costly. The funds in it are controlled within an acceptable amount. After saying goodbye to the attentive hotel manager, Yulia accompanied Baron in the Rolls-Royce. Your Highness, the prices of the 3 plots of land in King's Cross that I mentioned to you before have been negotiated with the other party. According to what you said, we obtained those plots at a price within 10% of the premium. The land totals about 2.05 hectares. The price varies slightly depending on its location. The total land purchase fee is expected to be around £6.3 million. These funds need to be paid when the contract is signed for land transfer. Baron is very satisfied with being able to win these 3 plots. The funds will be ready within a week, and we can start finalizing the deal with the other party now. This kind of large-scale land transaction does not really involve a one-time payment. It is very normal to agree on a payment period. On Baron's side, it is necessary to close this short-term short position of DS capital before the funds can be withdrawn. In addition, Ms. Moore, you can try to contact us again to see if there is any land that can be purchased in the King's Cross area, even if it is slightly away from the center of the station. It probably won't be easy, but I'll try my best. Baron nodded and changed the topic back to the hotel. You said before that the family has prepared the staff for the new hotel, right? It's not difficult for us. The original 4 hotels, after decades of operation, already have many employees who can take on middle and senior level positions in the hotels. For the new hotel, we will recruit some new employees and be taught by the old employees. There won't be much pressure on 1 or 2 new hotels. This is more like a model where the old leads the new. Baron is somewhat fortunate that his family's background can indeed benefit him in many traditional industries. The other thing is the name of the hotel. I know that our family's hotels currently have Devonhill as the hotel name, and there are also Cavendish as the hotel name. In the future, when the number increases, there will be some chaos. I am going to unify the name of the hotel. Are you going to keep one of the names? I plan to form a hotel group with the existing and subsequent hotels, which will be named Cavendish Hotel Group. In the future, ordinary hotels below 5 stars in the group will be named Cavendish, and German Hill will be used as the exclusive name for our luxury hotel. After thinking about it, Yulia realized that this adjustment was really good. Devonhill itself had the title of Duke and had noble attributes. As a name for a luxury hotel, it was very suitable. The family's previous hotel in London was called the Cavendish Hotel, which has been in operation for nearly 35 years. It is more well known here in comparison, so it is appropriate to retain it as the name of a hotel group. After sending Yulia off, Baron received a call from Bonnie. After hanging up the phone, he said to Wang Wanting, the passenger in front. Laura, you don't have to follow me today. I'll give you the rest of the day. Just wait for me at DS Capital tomorrow afternoon. His Royal Highness will also be there by then. Before he left the hotel where the charity fundraiser was held today, he had made an appointment with Prince William to visit DS Capital tomorrow. The data during the new book period is related to subsequent recommendations, so follow-up reading is very important. I beg you not to keep it all the time. If you feel that it is okay, read it every day to help increase follow-up reading. Thank you very much. Chapter 55 £1. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Baby, why don't you feel so good? During dinner, Baron held Bonnie's hand and asked gently. I'm sorry, honey, it's just a matter of work. Aren't you doing a good job recently? I said before that Sky TV launched a sports talk show just for you. When Baron Cavendish, who had just inherited the title of Duke of Devonshire, was planning to acquire the Independent, which was widely reported by the media, Baron once again became a hot topic in the news. In particular, his young, handsome appearance and noble background have become hotly talked about in reports and among the public. Just when His Royal Highness the young Duke became the new dream lover of many British girls, some gossip tabloids also exposed the young Duke's new relationship. After having an intimate relationship with Bonnie, he has never shied away from it. Being intimate with each other in public places, Bonnie, who is a host herself, has become the suspected new girlfriend of His Highness the Duke. In this regard, when interviewed, Baron did not deny it, but refused to answer because of personal questions. But this attitude is enough to explain something. As a result, Bonnie's popularity has also increased, and she has gained a lot of attention. Naturally, the Sky TV station where she works will not let go of such an opportunity. Moreover, Bonnie's conditions are already excellent, so she specially opened a sports club for her. Talk show. The number of broadcasts of this show also makes them very satisfied. After dinner, Baron held Bonnie's hand, sat on the sofa, held her in his arms, and said softly. Baby, I hope you can tell me anything, whether it's at work or in life. At least I can bear it with you, instead of you having to resolve those negative emotions yourself. Seeing the affection in Baron's eyes, Bonnie raised her head and kissed him, leaning into his arms. Actually, thinking about it now, it's nothing. Maybe I'm not used to it for a while. I just heard some bad voices on the TV station. They said that I'm doing it all because of you. It's because of those things about us. Reporting, let me get the current program. I can understand how you feel, and I even feel the same. Baby, I have also had such a moment. There are always some people who don't want to know the truth at all, and they don't want to know you as a person. They just rely on other people's words. They attack you without judgment and send trash talk into your ears with malicious intent. Have you ever had something like this happen to you? My dear, I thought that most of you nobles have lived in an atmosphere of goodwill since childhood. When Baron heard this, he chuckled. How is it possible? It is precisely because of my origin and my family that others will not see the efforts you put in for this. They will only attribute everything to you being treated preferentially, just like I can see you doing it for your job. How hard you have worked, especially after the new column. It is difficult for me to see you these days, but those people will not see this, and they are not even willing to understand. Thank you, dear, maybe I'm still a little uncomfortable with receiving so much attention all of a sudden. You don't have to pay attention to those people at all, honey. At the beginning, when faced with some malice and accusations, I wanted to explain it, but then I suddenly realized, why waste time with those irrelevant people? We need to do something, yes, just keep moving forward instead of stopping to argue. When you keep moving forward, those people will eventually be left behind. After hearing what you said, I feel much better. Baron, I am so lucky to have you by my side. Then Miss Bonnie, how should you thank me? Hearing Baron's whisper in her ear, Bonnie stood up and sat on his lap. She lowered her head slightly, pressed her forehead against Baron's, looked at each other, and then moved closer, gave him a long and affectionate kiss. Is this okay? Your Majesty the Duke. Her murmur did not satisfy Baron. I don't think it's enough. Then, let's go to the bedroom. Your Majesty, according to your instructions, we have reached an agreement with the INM Group. They will sell the Independent Newspaper Company, which owns the two newspapers The Independent and the Sunday Independent, to you for £1, but you need to ensure that these newspapers continue to operate well and that the debts of independent newspaper companies are covered. Amber Sheehan, a senior manager at PwC, finally completed negotiations with INM Group, the parent company of The Independent on behalf of Barron's, which means that Barron's is about to complete the acquisition of The Independent. Amber took out the relevant agreement, handed it to Barron, and said. After audit, the current independent newspaper company owns two newspapers, The Independent and the Sunday Independent. Coupled with its high liabilities, the current total assets are negative, with a deficit of up to £15 million. Barron had already seen this from the audit report of PwC. He listened to Amber and continued. Now we have managed to acquire the Independent Newspaper Company at a symbolic price of £1, and we have reached an agreement with INM Group. The other party will deliver a total of £5 million to the Independent Newspaper Company in installments within 6 months of the acquisition. To compensate for the losses we may suffer after taking over the company. Barron remembered that in his previous life, INM Group also sold the Independent Newspaper Company to the wealthy Russian businessman for £1, and the compensation they gave to the other party at that time reached more than £9 million. However, considering that their transaction was many years later, the situation of the Independent was already more difficult at that time, with annual losses reaching as high as £12.4 million. Over the past few years, INM Group has lost tens of millions of pounds. So it is understandable that the other party should be given such high compensation to get rid of the burden of the Independent. As for now, Barron is very satisfied with being able to get compensation of £5 million from the other party. After all, others don't know that although the Independent has a deficit of up to £15 million at this time, plus the other party's future compensation of £5 million, Barron still needs to face a pure debt of £10 million, but at this time, the Independent News Company also owned a 6-story office building covering an area of 1.5 hectares in the Canary Wharf area. This land parcel is located in the future financial core area of Canary Wharf and is close to the Thames River. The potential for appreciation is still very huge. In Barron's previous life, a Chinese tycoon bought a 16-story building with a similar area next to that location for a total of £410 million. When the wealthy Russian businessman later bought the Independent Newspaper Company, the Independent had already sold its office building in Canary Wharf and moved its headquarters to Dublin, Ireland due to consecutive years of losses. Therefore, this purchase of the Independent is not a loss at all for barons, especially the Canary Wharf land owned by the Independent News Company at this time. When he has sufficient funds in the future, he can completely rebuild a high-rise building on the same site as the location of the group's headquarters. And even if there is no office building, just acquiring the Independent and having its own media is extremely important for enhancing the family's influence in British society, in countries like Europe and the United States, as the so-called Fourth Estate controls the media. Even if Baron needs to spend money to support it, national newspapers such as the Independent can still play a role at certain times. Crucial role, among other things. If their family could have owned a widely influential media like the Independent earlier, they would never have been forced into such a situation before, at least neither would Scotland Yard. As perfunctory as it is now, the data during the new book period is related to subsequent recommendations, so follow-up reading is very important. I beg you not to keep it all the time. If you feel that it is okay, read it every day to help increase follow-up reading. Thank you very much. Chapter 56 His Royal Highness the Prince. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Of course, in addition to these acquisition conditions, I&M Group has also put forward requirements for your operation after acquiring the Independent Newspaper Company. You must ensure the continued operation of the Independent Newspaper Company and assume corresponding responsibilities, otherwise the agreement will be invalid. Not only will you have to return the company in compensation, we will also face lawsuits from the other party. These conditions are also the prerequisite for Baron to win the Independent. For I&M Group, it is acceptable for them to be able to get rid of the burden of continuous losses such as the Independent and focus their funds and energy on other industries. Moreover, compared to the doubts about the identity of the Russian businessman who was born in Klobo when Baron purchased the newspaper in his previous life, the I&M Group faced doubts about the identity of the other party. Selling the newspaper to Baron, the British Duke, would there is no resistance at all. However, even if they hope to get rid of the Independent, a burden that continues to generate losses and related debts, they still need to make sure that Baron can take on the responsibility of running the newspaper after buying it, rather than just dealing with the Independent. The Independent, a major national newspaper that once had many readers, is messing around. I can completely accept these conditions, Mr. Sheehan, and we can sign a contract with I&M Group as soon as possible. Okay, Your Highness the Duke, I will confirm with I&M Group immediately. After Amber Sheen said this, she saw the young Duke in front of her showing a kind smile. After this incident, Mr. Sheehan, I have one more thing that I need to ask your opinion on. Do you have any other entrustments for us? Your Highness the Duke. It is true that there is another commission, but it is not for PwC, but for you, Mr. Sheehan. Amber asked in confusion. Yes, for you, Mr. Sheehan. I am very satisfied with your ability in this acquisition. I have a position here. Would you consider accepting it? Your Highness, come with me. Our investment company is upstairs. Your Excellency, please just call me William in private. Okay, William, just call me Baron. As he received more and more attention, Baron's schedule began to become tense. Just today during lunch, he took the time to be interviewed by a reporter from The Guardian. The topic was mostly about his acquisition of the Independent action. As agreed yesterday, today Prince William visited DS Investment Company located in Lloyd's Building in the center of the financial city. The Lloyd's Building is a landmark building in the City of London. It was the first major project completed by the famous Richard Rogers in Bern. Because the building looks like an alien mechanical monster, this building has the reputation of a steel monster. The interior of the Lloyd Building is also very unique. There is an open atrium in the middle of the main building, surrounded by a horse racing gallery. All major office spaces are arranged along the horse racing gallery. The upper part of the atrium is an arched glass skylight that reaches a height of 72 meters from the lobby floor to the top of the atrium. There are two crisscrossing escalators in the hall, surrounded by metal decoration. Each floor overlooks the spectacular atrium, which is equipped with escalators that connect internal traffic. It is also a place for communication between people on different floors, bringing vitality to the entire space. DS Capital is located on the 10th floor of the building. the entire building has 14 floors in total, including 2 floors underground and 12 floors above ground. At first, the company only rented a few offices, but after Baron came here to see it, Daisy was asked to rent out all the remaining offices in the building that were still to be rented. Currently, DS Capital has leased 1/3 of the entire floor, but less than half of it has been used. At this time, Daisy's trading team has expanded to 5 people. Together with the rest of the office staff, the number of employees serving DS Capital has exceeded 10. Prince William is most interested in securities investment. This may be because he has read articles or movies and TV shows that describe financial battles. After seeing that the trading scene was not as intense as he imagined, he revealed that a bit disappointed. Currently our investments are divided into futures and stocks. In terms of stocks, they are mainly technology stocks in the US stock market, mainly stocks in the Nasdaq market. There is a time difference between the United States and London, and trading has just begun. Listening to Baron's introduction, William asked with some confusion. I heard that after the internet bubble burst, didn't technology stocks fall sharply? Yes, William, you are right, but you will never make money by following the crowd's footsteps when investing in stocks. Whether it is stocks or other securities, they are all cyclical. Only after a round of decline ends will the market start. The next uptick, I think it's about to start right now. By stating his opinion so directly, Baron has no fear that the other party will follow suit. Let's not talk about whether others really agree with Baron's opinion. What if they follow the trend and invest in technology stocks? Judging from Baron's previous experience, in the third quarter of this year, most technology stocks will experience another round of decline, although the magnitude this time will not be so large, unless he can accurately select stocks to avoid lightning, otherwise blindly following the trend will most likely suffer losses in this wave. Regarding these securities investments, it is obvious that Prince William is just watching the excitement. Speaking of which, since coming to DS Investment, he has not looked at the screen showing price trends as many times as he has looked at Daisy. I'm afraid if Baron hadn't been there, he would have been tempted to ask for Daisy's phone number. By the way, Baron, you said last time that you made a fortune from short selling, can you tell me about it? Of course, let's go to my office to talk. Today, Airgate's stock price has fallen below $2, from more than $40 to less than $2. Such a huge drop in such a short period of time has caused the company to be buried in lawsuits from angry investors. Not only has the company's management changed, but because of the general market downturn, the company's liquidity has also been problematic, and no improvement has been seen so far. From this time on, in response to this short sale, DS Capital has also begun to covertly buy stocks to close positions. As they bought the stock, Airgate's stock price continued to fall, which shows the attitude of investors at this time. Baron is not greedy either. Now that he has made enough profits, there is no need to eat all the fish heads and tails. The fattest fish body is enough for him to have a full meal. Therefore, revealing the short selling to Prince William at this time will not affect the overall situation at all. In this way, this afternoon, Baron took 2 or 3 hours to establish a friendship with Prince William. The two of them were not much different in age, and they had the same noble background, so they had more common topics. Later, William and Baron became good friends and invited him to take time to play together at his school, or attend those interesting parties together. From the chat, Baron also learned that William did have a girlfriend in college at this time, but it was not Cather. They were not very close yet. William's current girlfriend was a campus beauty in their school. No wonder, this also solved his previous doubts. The data during the new book period is related to subsequent recommendations, so follow-up reading is very important. I beg you not to keep it all the time. If you feel that it is okay, read it every day to help increase follow-up reading. Thank you very much. Chapter 57 Newspaper Revision. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Mr. Whitney, we meet again. Yes, Your Highness the Duke, perhaps this is the best outcome. After the acquisition of the Independent was settled, Baron came to Canary Wharf, the office building where the Independent was located. The last time I came here to meet with Whitney, the editor-in-chief of the Independent, it was in a coffee shop less than 100 meters away from the building. The reason was that Whitney was introduced to Barron's novel Downton Abbey as interested. It was also during that meeting that Barron first proposed the idea of acquiring the Independent. Now, after Barron has just signed an acquisition agreement for the independent newspaper company with representatives of the I&M Group, he has also announced that he has achieved his original goal and acquired the independent newspaper. Except for Whitney, the editor-in-chief of the Independent, it can be said that Barron and his team attracted the attention of all the company employees from the moment they entered the building of the independent newspaper company. From various related reports, everyone is no longer unfamiliar with the young Duke who is about to acquire the Independent, and today, when the other party walks into this office building, it also means that the Independent has changed its status and has become an asset of the Devonshire family. Their future in the newspaper office is closely related to the other party. Whether the Independent can regain its vitality, or whether it will remain in the doldrums or even become lonely, is something they cannot determine at this time. At this time, Barron was not prepared to give an inspiring speech in public. A promise that is not based on reality will ultimately be empty. Mr. Whitney, I hope to have a good discussion with you and the newspaper manager about future business issues. This is what I hope too, Your Highness the Duke. Barron has thought about how the Independent should be run and what changes it should make after buying it. In fact, the emergence of various new media, especially the internet and later smartphones, has had a huge impact on traditional paper newspapers. However, under such impact, some newspaper groups still survived and maintained considerable influence. Then by reviewing the other party's practices, we can generally find ways to maintain the vitality and rejuvenation of the Independent. After all, these methods have been personally verified by those later successful newspapers. Amid the complicated looks in the eyes of the staff of the Independent, Barron, Amber Sheehan, Wanting Wong, the manager of the Independent, Bob Mansfield, and the editor-in-chief, Whitney, entered the meeting one after another. In the room, the door of the conference room was closed, blocking the sight of all employees outside. They knew that meetings related to the future of the Independent were about to begin there. Mr. Bob, Mr. Whitney, although it may not be necessary, I would like to introduce myself. I, Baron Cavendish, am the new owner of the Independent. He nodded to the newspaper manager and editor-in-chief who were sitting on the chairs in the conference room, then walked to Amber Sheehan's side and continued to introduce. Mr. Amber Sheehan, who previously worked at PwC, is now the manager of the Industrial Investment Department of DS Capital. Well, the independent newspaper company is managed by this department. We currently own two newspapers, the Independent and the Sunday Independent, the latter being the weekly edition of the Independent. Is that right? Mr. Bob. Bob Mansfield, manager of the independent newspaper company, nodded and said. Yes, Your Highness the Duke. Gentlemen, the first thing I want to say is that I did not buy the Independent to make money. Believe me, I would make more if the same money was invested elsewhere, instead of facing the Independent. Such an unknown risk. I bought this newspaper purely out of my own sense of responsibility. I couldn't just watch a newspaper that was once loved by many readers fall down like this. By the way, I have always been one of these loyal readers. A member of. At this time, Barron's expression was extremely sincere. Mr. Bob, Mr. Editor-in-Chief, I believe that both of you also hope that the Independent can regain its vitality and develop better and better, right? Seeing the two of them nodding at the same time, Barron smiled and said. Then it means that we all have the same goal. I hope you understand that everything I do is for this purpose, so I hope we can continue to cooperate well. There is no need to elaborate on the implication of Barron's words. If the cooperation cannot continue, then the only choice is to replace them. Having said this, Barron pulled the whiteboard in the corner of the conference room in front of everyone and wrote two words on it: tradition, change. After I take over the Independent, I will still maintain the philosophy of this newspaper, to use a neutral stance, strive for the truth, conduct in-depth and detailed investigations and reports on events, and expose social injustice and corruption. Again, the same sentence in other words, my purpose in buying the Independent was to save the newspaper, not to turn it into another The Sun for profit. But the philosophy of the newspaper remains unchanged, but the way it operates needs to change. Hearing Barron's promise not to change the philosophy of the newspaper, both manager Bob and editor-in-chief Whitney were secretly relieved. The Sun mentioned by Barron was exactly what they were worried about, and they had to admit that the Sun does make money, but they despise the false and vulgar reports in it. Barron's planned changes to the Independent are, first of all, to add a fiction column and start publishing the Downton Abbey novel. Then it was time to revamp the entire newspaper, adding pictures and printing it in full color to attract more readers. There is also a change from the original large-page newspaper to a simultaneous publication of large-page and small-page newspapers, in the original British newspapers. The main difference between the so-called broadsheets and tabloids was based on the size of the newspapers. However, it turns out that small-format newspapers are easier for readers to read, and because the paper required is smaller, they appear to be more environmentally friendly. No way, today's young people like to flaunt these. The transformation of traditional British broadsheet newspapers into small-page newspapers is also a subsequent trend. For example, major newspapers such as The Times and The Guardian also later changed to small-page newspapers. The time is right for the Independent to undergo such a revamp. The final change is that with the advent of the Internet, traditional paper media also need to change accordingly. Barron is preparing to open the official website of the Independent and then try to issue an electronic version of the newspaper. Of course, when he first took over the Independent, Barron was not prepared to make all changes at once. These plans will be implemented step by step. The first is to add a novel column to publish Downton Abbey, and then revise the newspaper. During this period, preparations began for the official website of the Independent and the recruitment of electronic editors. In response to these revision plans proposed by Barron, newspaper manager Bob and editor-in-chief Whitney mostly expressed their acceptance, but they also put forward their own opinions. For example, manager Bob proposed, "Your Highness the Duke, I agree to try to publish small edition newspapers, but as you said, adding pictures and full-page color printing will increase the cost of the newspaper, but we originally had a plan to reduce the price of the newspaper, so," after hearing his words, Barron said without hesitation, "There is no need to lower the price of our newspapers, just keep the current price." The current selling price of newspapers can be easily afforded by ordinary people. For today's newspapers, price reduction is not a good strategy. All we need is to insist on the quality of our reporting, and people will be happy to pay for high-quality content. The data during the new book period is related to subsequent recommendations, so follow-up reading is very important. I beg you not to keep it all the time. If you feel that it is okay, read it every day to help increase follow-up reading. Thank you very much. Chapter 58 Novel Serialization. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The current price of each copy of The Independent is 65 pence, which is actually acceptable for low-income people. The price of The Independent is currently the highest among the British national newspapers. By comparison, The Times costs just 30p. They dropped the price from 45p in 1993 to 30p now. At that time, their price reduction was said to be the most successful in the modern British newspaper industry, doubling its circulation. It seems that the price reduction of newspapers is indeed effective, but these measures proposed by Barron this time are not just empty words without basis. In addition to referring to the experience of the development of the newspaper industry in his previous life, he also hired a professional data survey agency and obtained many British reports. Data on various measures of newspapers. In 2001, last year, the competition between the Daily Express, Daily Mirror and The Sun triggered the biggest price-cutting war in the British newspaper industry in recent years. At that time, the effect of their price cuts was immediate, but the duration was very short. After the initial price reduction, each newspaper gained a large number of new readers, but now, less than a year later, the circulation of the Daily Mirror has dropped by 3.4%. Compared with before the price reduction, and its other two competitors were not spared, and sales fell sharply again. Therefore, Barron believes that by now, the newspaper industry's price war is no longer effective. Consumers will definitely be willing to pay for a good product. Compared with lowering the price of our newspapers, improving the quality of the newspapers and making the Independent more quality and style is the best strategy. If people are willing to pay for a cup of coffee paying £2.50, they won't mind paying less than a third of the price to read an excellent newspaper. Barron concluded, in the end, he convinced the newspaper manager Bob and the editor-in-chief Whitney, or in other words, they chose to temporarily try the new boss's inspiration measures. Of course, the initial implementation was a novel column that did not require much investment or change. To achieve this, it only needed to leave a place in the layout of the newspaper. What's more, Whitney himself has read the first novel of Downton Abbey and is fascinated by it. Naturally, he supports this matter with both hands and feet, if his slightly bloated figure can do this. When will we start publishing Downton Abbey? Your Highness. Seeing Whitney's impatient expression, Baron smiled and said. Your Excellency, Editor-in-Chief, I think you can do it at any time, but beforehand, it is a better strategy to carry out some publicity. I don't mind if you use any way to make this novel famous, including my name. If that's the case, Your Highness the Duke, I think I may have some ideas. Just as Baron announced in the conference room of the independent newspaper at the beginning, Amber Sheehan, who originally worked at PwC, was the one who helped Baron complete the acquisition of the independent this time. After some consideration, this senior manager accepted Baron's recruitment and became the manager of the Industrial Investment Department of DS Capital. His decision, in addition to Baron increasing his annual salary from £150,000 to £250,000, is also because Baron gave him the opportunity to run a department alone, which is difficult to get in the short term at PwC. After Amber Sheehan joins, DS Capital will make more full use of their office area and divide it into the Securities Investment Department with Daisy as the manager, and the Industrial Investment Department with Amber Sheehan as the manager. The independent newspaper company that was just acquired by Barron's is managed by DS Capital's Industrial Investment Department. Of course, professional matters are left to professionals. Currently, the day-to-day operations of the independent newspaper company are still in charge of its manager Bob and editor-in-chief Whitney. Amber Sheehan mainly only performs some financial control. In addition, Amber's other recent job is to register a subsidiary called DS Asset Management Company under the Industrial Investment Department. After that, the land in King's Cross and the mansion in Chelsea will be these real estate properties will be managed uniformly by DS Asset Management Company. After it was revealed that the youngest Duke in England at this time, the Duke of Devonshire, Baron Cavendish, the Duke of Devonshire, whose family was once in financial crisis, purchased the independent newspaper for a symbolic price of £1. Related reports also poured in. The new owner of the independent, Duke Devonshire, said in an interview not long ago that after the acquisition, the independent will continue to maintain its philosophy of taking a neutral position and pursuing the truth, and will not deviate from the newspaper. The original intention of its creation. After acquiring the independent, which suffered serious losses, the 22-year-old Duke of Devonshire became the youngest newspaper owner in England. Where will he take this once splendid but now mired newspaper? Woolen cloth. It can be said that there are such reports with various views, but most of the reports are not optimistic about the future of the newspaper after Baron takes charge of the newspaper. It is no wonder that on the one hand, Baron is too young and has no previous experience in newspaper business, and the heir to the Duke of Devonshire's family's previous reputation, if his romantic nature can be considered a reputation, does not seem to be too reliable. The spectrum looks like. These reports have also made readers of the Independent a little uncertain about whether this newspaper they often read will continue to exist in the future. However, they discovered that in the latest issue of the Independent, there was an extra novel column, and in the column, a novel called Downton Abbey began to be serialized. The content of the novel is still at the beginning and the plot has not yet unfolded, so it is not clear yet. However, some good people have discovered the author of this novel, and there are two names listed side by side, Baron Cavendish and Bonnie Stewart. These two names seem familiar, right? So someone quickly pointed out that the author of this novel called Downton Abbey, which was serialized in the Independent, was the owner of the newspaper and the youngest Duke in England at the time, Baron Cavendish. The other one was Bonnie Stewart, a very well-known beauty host on Sky TV at this time, and the key is that the two have been photographed together in private many times, behaving intimately, and are suspected of being lovers. This is very interesting. The gossip of celebrities, especially nobles and public figures like Baron and Bonnie, always attracts public attention, and Downton Abbey is precisely a novel that describes the life of aristocrats in the old era nearly 100 years ago. The author is first of all a real aristocrat, and he is also the highest-ranking duke among non-royal aristocrats. This makes many people think about the novel. This novel generated immense curiosity. After reading it like this, the extremely high quality of Downton Abbey immediately attracted countless fans and highly praised it. There are even reports that even Her Majesty the Queen likes this novel very much. She will set aside time every morning to ask her maid to read the newspaper for her. Every time, she deliberately leaves the last one to read, which is serialized in the Independent. Downton Abbey. While listening to this serialized novel, the Queen would always make someone make a cup of black tea, enjoying this leisurely time very much. The data during the new book period is related to subsequent recommendations, so follow-up reading is very important. I beg you not to keep it all the time. If you feel that it is okay, read it every day to help increase follow-up reading. Thank you very much. Chapter 59 Still Short of Money. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Yes, Downton Abbey became popular. With the blessing of many factors, 1 week after the novel was published, the sales volume of the Independent increased from 150,000 copies to 170,000 copies, and continues to increase. Of course, this lasting effect will take longer to be seen. After a long wait, DS Capital finally completed its short position on Airgate stock. At the beginning, they took out £5 million, shorted the stock with a 10% margin, and borrowed approximately 1.83 million shares of Airgate shares through Barclays Bank. The average price of these stocks sold by DS Capital was around $37.70. The average price of the 1.83 million shares of Airgate ultimately purchased was only $1.54. In the end, DS Capital earned approximately $54 million, equivalent to approximately £36 million. After paying capital gains tax and related securities lending fees from this short-selling operation, the £5 million as a deposit will be returned to the original capital pool and continue to implement the previously set investment strategy. After obtaining the funds, Baron completed the acquisition of the 3 plots of land in King's Cross. After transferring the funds to DS Capital Management, Amber was responsible for completing the land transfer process. In addition, the Victorian mansion in Chelsea also belongs to DS Capital Management after spending £17 million. At the same time, Yulia was responsible for organizing the original 4 hotels of the family into the Cavendish Hotel Group, with Rob Pike, the original head of the family's hotel business, serving as the general manager of the hotel group. The Cavendish Hotel Group will rent a mansion in Chelsea owned by DS Asset Management and use its own assets to borrow £12 million from the bank to renovate and decorate the Victorian mansion and build it into a luxury hotel. Hotel, Devonshire, Chelsea, Hotel. It is expected that the renovation of this mansion into a luxury hotel will be completed within 3 months. At that time, the employees of the Cavendish Hotel in Soho will select outstanding candidates and add more people. After training, they will enter here and become employees of the first Devonshire brand luxury hotel. After all, after the renovation, the house itself will have about 30 rooms, including a royal suite and a ducal suite, which are similar in size to the original Cavendish Hotel in London. If the royal suites offered by other luxury hotels are a bit unrealistic, then the royal suites at the Devonshire Hotel are blameless. After all, not only did Queen Victoria stay at their family manor, but she was also honored as a royal guest. Queen Mary was imprisoned for a long time. Not directly naming it Queen Mary Suite is already very flattering to the royal family. After spending these funds, DS Capital's account went from £36 million to less than £13 million, according to the information obtained from the butler Sean. After hiring a professional agency to estimate the overall renovation and modernization project of Chatsworth Manor, this project is expected to cost £20 million to complete. This plan includes transforming some of the manor rooms into hotels for commercial operations. Chatsworth Manor has more than 100 rooms in total, and about 30 of them will be open to the public after the transformation, including 10 suites. It will be let to Devonshire Hotels and become rooms at the new Devonshire Chatsworth Manor Hotel. In the near future, Baron plans to form Devonshire Cultural Tourism Group. At this time, the Chatsworth Manor owned by the family and 2 other castles and manors in Scotland and Ireland will be included in Devonshire. Among the cultural tourism groups, Your Highness the Duke, we have reached an agreement with Barclays Bank to use the assets held by DS Asset Management Company for mortgage loans. The other party can grant us a loan of £20 million. In DS Capital's office, Amber Sheehan reports to Barron on the fundraising status. There are still many places to use money. After Barron spent money to buy a land in King's Cross and a mansion in Chelsea, he backhandedly mortgaged it to the bank for a loan. Calculated in this way, the funds spent on these real estates are only more than £3 million and part of the interest on bank loans. Don't think that using a property purchased for more than £23 million and lending £20 million at this time is too exaggerated. In fact, as a private bank, Barclays Bank can be more flexible for the sake of profit. Moreover, DS Capital's securities investment account itself is opened at Barclays Bank, and the other party is not worried that Barron will not be able to repay the loan. At the critical moment, they will also flexibly respond. Moreover, at this time, real estate mortgage loans have begun to recover after experiencing a slight decline since 2000. Against this background, banks will become bolder in order to obtain more profits. It is not an exaggeration now. In a few years, not to mention the boom in real estate loans in the United States, even in England, the mortgage ratios offered by many banks will already be as high as 125–130%. In other words, if a property worth £1 million is mortgaged to a bank, and the other party can lend you more than £1.2 million of funds, you will be asked whether you want a loan. Without all this madness, how could the subprime mortgage crisis sweeping the world have come about? For the sake of profit, capitalists are always willing to sell the rope that hangs them. As for DS Capital's debt-maintaining expansion method, it can be said that almost all capital is being used. In this way, risks can be controlled during the economic upturn, but once the economy faces a crisis or downturn, it can easily lead to a chain collapse due to depletion of liquidity. But Barron's biggest advantage is that he has experience in his previous life and can clearly see the general economic trend. After all, due to the pressure of life, when funds are needed everywhere, Barron can only continue to look for financial investment opportunities to raise funds for the reorganization of his industry. This time, his target is London Copper, LME Copper, a futures product of the London Futures Exchange, LME. In the first half of last year, copper prices fell slowly from £1,191 per ton in January to £1,121 in May as the global economy fell into a downturn due to the bursting of the dot-com bubble and shrinking demand. But after June, the price of copper in London began to decline at an accelerated pace, and the price of copper once fell below £1,100. The support level since 1999, the disappointment in the market, coupled with the occurrence of the 9/11 incident, made investors completely desperate, and the price of copper in London fell to £890 in one fell swoop. Until November, copper prices rebounded sharply from the lows of nearly 15 years, stimulated by large-scale global production cuts. The subsequent rebound in the U.S. economy extended the rebound in copper prices in the first half of this year. It can be said that at this time, the economy of the United States had a great impact on global copper prices, because at this time it was still the world's largest copper consumer, but Barron knows that by the time mid to late July is approaching, the driving force behind the rise in London copper prices in the first half of the year will gradually fade away. In the third quarter of this year, the U.S. economy will weaken again, market sentiment will be increasingly hit, and copper prices will fall sharply within a few days. Within 4 weeks of the sharpest decline, the price of copper in London would fall directly from the previous high point of nearly £1,500 to less than £1,000, a drop of nearly 50%. This is also his best opportunity in the near future. After all, the leverage of London copper can be as high as 20 times, and the market is very large. The daily transaction volume is in the billions and tens of billions, which is not comparable to the U.S. stocks he previously operated, so it can also accommodate larger funds. The data during the new book period is related to subsequent recommendations, so follow-up reading is very important. I beg you not to keep it all the time. If you feel that it is okay, read it every day to help increase follow-up reading. Thank you very much. Chapter 60 Argent Real Estate Group. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Congratulations, Your Highness the Duke. I am now reviewing the first novel from the serial in the Independent every day. By the way, when are you going to start writing the second one? You know, ma'am, Bonnie has been too busy lately, and we plan to start writing the second part of the novel later. After Baron saw Viscountess Chris, he gently held her arm, gave her a kiss, and said to her, "Just like today, we originally agreed to come together, but she couldn't spare the time in the end. She is much busier than me now. Her recent new show has been very stressful, but what I didn't expect was that you actually bought The Independent and it is now running so well." "Yes, Your Highness, a very bold and successful move." After Chris finished speaking, Viscount Butte beside her shook hands with Baron and praised him. "Compared to our cooperation, it's just a small business, isn't it, Your Excellency?" "Huh, Your Highness the Duke, I also hope that our big business can be completed smoothly." Just as he was talking to Viscount Butte and his wife, and walking towards the house, Baron's peripheral vision inadvertently caught his valet walking behind Viscount Butte, looking at him. A flash of hate. I don't know if he noticed Baron's gaze, but the other party gave him a smile, which almost made him think that he had seen it wrong, thinking of what I overheard at the dance at Viscount Butte's house that day. Interesting, the party Baron attended today was a meeting of the London Association of Realtors. As the name suggests, the London Association of Realtors is an association composed of real estate developers. In London, there are about 110 trade guilds in various industry categories, the earliest of which have a history of nearly 1,000 years, and there are also trade guilds established in emerging industries in the past century. For example, the history of the Real Estate Dealers Guild can be traced back to the 17th century, which is 300 years old now. Among the members of this guild, there are many powerful families in the London real estate industry, such as the powerful families who own a quarter of London's land. The Dukes of Westminster, today, Baron and but both attended the gathering of the Real Estate Dealers Association as shareholders of the Argent Real Estate Group. The Butt family themselves are members of the association, and are also members of the Management Committee of the London Real Estate Dealers Association. Viscount T's father is one of the members of this guild. When his father dies or steps down, Ian Butt, the heir to the family, will inherit this position. Yes, most of the committee members and members of such ancient trade guilds are hereditary. Of course, in modern times, many trade guilds will also regularly open up new members to join, especially trade guilds in some emerging industries, which will be more open. After a period of negotiation and deliberation, Baron, Viscount Butte and other interested parties finally reached an agreement on the renovation project of King's Cross. All real estate holders who are willing to cooperate will allocate a part of the new company's shares based on the valuation of the real estate they hold. In fact, the reason why the discussion takes so long is mainly because of the final value of the real estate held by each party. There are some differences in the definition, such as the weight proportion of factors such as area and location, but eventually an agreement was reached. Another part of the new company's shares will be used to merge into Argent Real Estate Company, a real estate development company with sufficient experience and qualifications, and to reserve part of the shares for other partners. Due to the merger with Argent Real Estate Company, the name of the new company was set as Argent Real Estate Group. Among the shares of the new company, 60% of the shares were allocated to the real estate holders in King's Cross who joined this cooperation. Barons the family trust acquired a 15% stake in the group with approximately 6 hectares of land on the gas storage tank site. DS Asset Management acquired a 5% stake with approximately 2 hectares of land, therefore, he holds a total of 20% of the shares of Argent Real Estate Group. Viscount Butte obtained 12.5% of the shares with approximately 5 hectares of land, and the remaining shares were distributed to other property holders. However, in the Argent Real Estate Group, Viscount Butte is still the controlling shareholder, because in the merged Argent Real Estate Company, the Butte family holds more than 60% of the shares. Relying on these shares, they also obtained an additional 12% of the shares, totaling holding 22.5% of the shares. It is the largest single shareholder of Argent Group. Of course, these are all shareholdings on the surface. It is still unclear how many other groups' shareholdings are closely related to it. In addition, the investment banking department of Barclays Bank invested capital to become a shareholder holding 10% of the shares of Argent Real Estate Group, and Barclays Bank will be responsible for the financing of Argent Real Estate Group in the entire King's Cross District renovation plan. Argent Real Estate Group also has an additional 10% stake, which it has accepted shares from some other entities, including some powerful groups in King's Cross. It is worth mentioning that the London Association of Realtors also invested in shares and holds 5% of the shares of Argent Real Estate Group. Yes, now, because they hold a large amount of real estate, many trade associations will actively invest in equity in some projects, including real estate projects, in order to continue their wealth, just like in the Argent Real Estate Group. Not only London, the Real Estate Developers Association holds shares, as well as the Coal Industry Association and the Grain Merchants Association that invest in shares through the land they hold. After the establishment of Argent Real Estate Group, because it received the support of most property owners in the King's Cross area, it also obtained the authorization from the Kenton District and became the main developer of the King's Cross area renovation project. They will also receive government commissions for renovation plans for public areas. At this time, Argent Real Estate Group has hired 2 local architecture and urban planning firms in London to develop a master plan for King's Cross. After completing the plan, it will be submitted to the Kenton District Council and reported to the London City Government. Finally, it is worth mentioning that in order to promote the development of King's Cross after its transformation, the Kenton Borough Government has applied to the London Municipal Government to move Central St Martin's into King's Cross. Central St Martin's was founded in 1989 by the merger of 2 schools, Central School of Arts and Crafts and St Martin's School of Art. This school is the largest and best art and design school in the UK. It belongs to the University of the Arts London, ranked in the top 3 art and design categories in the global university rankings, and is also one of the 4 major fashion design schools in the world. It is well known in the international fashion industry as a prestigious school that produces famous fashion designers. Most of its fashion design graduates are employed by many international fashion brands such as Dior and Gucci. Every year, the launch of graduates' fashion works at London Fashion Week becomes a popular event. International fashion brands and international fashion media pay attention to and explore the focus of emerging design talents. It can be said that the introduction of this university is very important to King's Cross. However, there are not many plots of land suitable for building a campus for this school in this area. In the end, of the 6 hectares of the Siamese triplets plot of abandoned gas storage tanks, about 4 hectares of land on the east side were expropriated as part of the Central St Martin's campus. To this end, the Camden government will allocate approximately 4 hectares of land to the Argent Property Group as compensation in the area immediately east of King's Cross Station, which was originally a public area owned by the government. This plan is acceptable to Baron. After all, the replacement land is closer to the 2 stations, and this land is very close to the 0.8 hectare land he bought, so they can be planned collaboratively. The data during the new book period is related to subsequent recommendations, so follow-up reading is very important. I beg you not to keep it all the time. If you feel that it is okay, read it every day to help increase follow-up reading. Thank you very much.